What's up guys? Welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be my labor and delivery story. I'm super excited to tell you guys about my experience. It was great at the end because everything turned out awesome, but it was kind of long and stressful. So my daughter's sleeping over here. She is going to be 1 month old tomorrow, and hopefully she's going to sleep through this. She's been sleeping a little while and she looks like she's waking up, so we'll see how this goes. But anyway, I really wanted to film my whole experience like in real time when I was in the hospital, but because of how everything went, I just kind of stopped filming halfway through and focused on delivery and getting her here safe. So I will put those clips in throughout the video so you can see me in the hospital a little bit. So let's start with those clips and then I'll be back to pick up where those leave off. What's up guys? So it is like 5 a.m. on Monday, May 13th, and we are officially admitted to the hospital. I started having contractions last night at around 6 p.m. and they went on until about 1:30 or so, and around then I got up to use the bathroom and my water broke. So after my water broke, we decided to just come in. I know some people stay at home for a while, but we just wanted to come in and make sure everything was good with the baby. Just because of, I think, everything we've been through. I just wanted to have that peace of mind. And so we came in, and my contractions have actually slowed down a little bit since my water broke, but they are still coming. They're not very strong, or at least they're not like that uncomfortable. They're just like pressure at this point. So yeah, I can't believe like this day is finally here. We have waited for so long. So I will try to give you guys updates as much as I can, and film as much as I can. And yes, it's very exciting. Okay, so now it is about 7 o'clock and I haven't been having that many regular contractions. I have had some, but they're not like progressing enough. So they are going to give me Pitocin to induce labor. So I'm pretty nervous about it. I'm not gonna lie. Like I'm nervous about the pain. I'm nervous about like when I should ask for an epidural, like when's the right time and getting the epidural and all that. So I am super excited, but feeling nervous at this point, but just trying to focus on what the end result of all of this is going to be, and that it's all going to be worth it. So yeah, they have not checked me because since my water broke, they don't want to check me to see if I'm any more dilated because of risk of infection, I guess. So but when I was checked about a week and a half ago, I was 2 centimeters and 100% effaced at that point. So yeah, after I get closer to when I want the epidural, they said they'll check me then. Oh, something else I wanted to mention, I am officially on 24 hours of no sleep at this point. So I woke up around 7 a.m. yesterday, and I maybe took like a 10-minute nap since we've been here because I was having contractions at home. My water broke at 1:30 in the morning, so I never went to bed last night. And then since I've gotten here, it's just been like nurses in and out and getting me set up and admitted and IV and everything, blood work, and then like the midwife coming in to like officially admit me, and then the baby monitors getting messed up and moving. So I slept maybe 10 minutes. So I'm hoping I can like get a couple little naps today, because I think that would be a good idea. Also, I just had some peanut butter with toast with peanut butter, and that's the last thing I'm allowed to eat because they're gonna start the Pitocin very shortly here. So they said I could start the Pitocin right away or I could have something to eat, and I decided I wanted to eat because it's breakfast time and I thought I'll feel better throughout the day if I have something rather than being on an empty stomach completely. So yeah. So now it is a little after 9 o'clock, and been on Pitocin for like an hour and a half, and I think she started at a 2 and now it's at an 8. and the highest you can go is 20. So not getting that frequent of contractions, but the ones I'm getting are definitely getting to be kind of uncomfortable, but just trying to breathe through them and listening to or watching The Office on my phone on Netflix, and just trying to relax and maybe get a little sleep here and there between contractions. So going good. Got my husband sleeping over there. It is 10:30 a.m. now. I have now been on the Pitocin for 3 hours, and we are now at a 9. So I was at an 8 on the Pitocin for like an hour, and then I was having pretty regular contractions. Then I switched positions, and they slowed down a tiny bit, so she just put it up to a 9 instead of a 10, because usually they put it up 2 every time. And they are definitely painful, but I feel like over the past hour I've kind of gotten to a place where I figured out kind of how to breathe through them, and so I feel like they're less painful than they were maybe like an hour ago, and every time I get one I just picture it pushing her more towards being born, so that really helps. Also, the nurse recommended like staring at a spot instead of closing my eyes, and that's been good too. I am just getting another one. Compared to the kidney stone that I had, I would say the pain is about the same right now, but the difference is the contractions stop after like 30 seconds, whereas the kidney stone pain was constant for hours. So I would take contractions over the kidney stone at this point, but we are still pretty early on. So far, just taking it a couple minutes at a time. I did fall asleep for like 10 minutes, maybe around like an hour ago or so. So now I've probably gotten about 20 minutes of sleep in a little over 24 hours. So yeah, I am still waiting on that epidural, and okay. I am still waiting before I get an epidural because I can manage the pain at this point. But the contractions are coming fast and furious. Like, I've had 3 and I've been filming for 5.5 minutes. So I'm guessing they're probably not going to need to up the Pitocin anymore if this continues, because they just up it as needed to get you to contract regularly, and not everybody needs to go up to like a really high number. So yeah, that's it for now. I'll give you a little tour of our room. Nothing fancy. Just got the monitors over here, the contractions and baby's heartbeat, and that's the door over there, and a couple windows. That's where baby will go when they're checking her out. Bathroom over there, husband over there, and me, and that's it. Okay, it's like 2:30 now. Sorry for the like changing quality of the video, because some of it I'm filming on my camera and some on my phone. But basically, about 2 hours ago, my Pitocin was at 10 or 9, and I switched positions. I was on an exercise ball, and then I switched to a like just laying on my side in the bed, and all of a sudden I did not feel good. I felt like I was going to pass out. My blood pressure got really low, and I just did not feel well. So the nurse and the doctor and everybody came in and was a little bit concerned. I do have a history of low blood pressure, and they just didn't like that I wasn't feeling well with having that many contractions and Pitocin being at that level. So they ended up turning off my Pitocin for a while, like an hour maybe, and I was still having some contractions pretty regularly, and then I was able to sleep for like 45 minutes or so, so that was good. I had some juice, and I did start to feel better. So they turned the Pitocin back on now because the contractions were like slowing down. So
okay, so right after that last clip, the anesthesiologist came in to talk to me about the epidural, and it was not a conversation that went how I was expecting. I thought he might have some concerns because of my blood pressure was running low, but I didn't think he would say what he did, which was he didn't think I should get an epidural at all. He said that my blood pressure could drop just from like putting in the epidural at all, like the puncturing my skin could make me like woozy, and my blood pressure could drop. Once it's in, the medicine can make your blood pressure drop, and he just thought that the risk was there, that it could cause harm to the baby. And basically what would happen if my blood pressure dropped too much is baby's heart rate would drop, and they would have to knock me out completely and rush me into an emergency C-section. So that's worst case scenario, besides like losing your baby, is getting knocked out completely and running into emergency surgery for delivery, for like, to me, I think. So obviously they have to tell you worst case scenario, but he was pretty, I don't know, I wouldn't say adamant, but he was pretty clear that he didn't think it was a good idea, which was really hard for me to hear, because the only other options for pain management during delivery are they'll give you laughing gas, or they'll give you some sort of narcotic that's like lasts for a little bit, but you know, doesn't do what an epidural does, and they both make you woozy. Okay, so take a break to feed baby, and now she's, I think, sleeping again. So anyway, so yeah, so the two medications they can give you, like, they make you woozy, and I just didn't want to do those. Like, when going into it, my plan was to get an epidural when the pain got to be too much, and by this point, it was like 2:30, 2:45 in the afternoon. I had been at the hospital for about 12 hours. I had been on Pitocin for about, what is that, like 7-8 hours, and the pain was starting to get kind of, you know, intense at that point. So, but he did say if I did choose to do the epidural, he would give me a shot of ephedrine, which is a medication that increases your blood pressure, and so that way my risk of my blood pressure dropping would be lower, and it would make, the medicine would make my heart race and make me sweat and shake and stuff maybe, but like it would be important to do ahead of time, just to, like, you know, help avoid that situation happening. So at that point I was really tired. I hadn't slept in like a day and a half. I had only eaten like peanut butter toast in the morning at 7 a.m. and nothing else for like basically almost 24 hours. And I basically had like a mini meltdown. Like, I went into the bathroom of my hospital room and I just cried like hysterically for like 2 to 3 minutes. And then I pulled myself together and, you know, came back out. And then after that, basically, I was talking to my nurse, and it was shift change at, I think, 3 o'clock. So I was getting a new nurse, my old nurse was leaving, and basically, like, I was talking to them, and they were like, look, the anesthesiologist has to tell you worst case scenario. Like, that's their job. But I've seen a million women go through this over like numerous years. One of them had 13 years experience in labor and delivery, and the other had 8 years experience. And they were just like, I haven't ever seen something go wrong with low blood pressure. Like, they give you the medicine, they watch you carefully, and you're fine. They have to tell you what could happen, but I've never seen that happen. So after they told me that, I was like, okay, because I was having a lot of guilt. Like, I didn't want to put the baby at risk for my comfort, but I also didn't think I would be able to survive labor without an epidural. And I was gonna take the other medication and be woozy and whatever, if I needed to, but I still just didn't think I could survive it, because I was so exhausted and I was in rough shape going into labor. Like, I was not feeling well. I hadn't been feeling well. I had been taken out of work. I had gestational diabetes. Like, I have a whole bunch of videos talking about all that stuff leading up to that point. If you guys are interested, I'll link some below. But yeah, I was not like, I hadn't been exercising. I had been on a really restricted diet. I was not gaining a lot of weight. It was just, I was weak, already in a weakened state. Plus I hadn't slept in so long or eaten, which was affecting me a lot. And yeah, so anyway, it was a tough decision because I was concerned that if I didn't get the epidural, the pain would exhaust me so much that I would end up having a C-section, because that actually happened to one of my friends. And just because it happened to one person you know doesn't mean it's gonna happen to you, but I was just feeling so exhausted. I was in a lot of pain, so I wasn't able to sleep. And I just thought, if I get an epidural, I'll be able to sleep maybe. I won't be so exhausted from the pain. I'll have energy to push. And so at the end of the day, I decided to do it. I did have a lot of guilt when I made that decision, but as it turned out, it all worked out. So I'm glad that I did, but it was a really tough decision for me. So from there, they hadn't checked me still. So they decided that when I was ready to get the epidural, that they were going to check me first just to see where I was at. So at 3:30, about an hour later, the doctor decided to check me, and she noticed that my water had only partially broken, which I didn't know could happen. So I was starting to feel a lot of pressure. The contractions were getting really uncomfortable. And when she checked me, I was 4 centimeters. And when I had been checked last, like 2 weeks prior, I was 2 centimeters. So that was good. I was like, you know, making progress for sure. It was like, after being on Pitocin for 8 hours, I had only dilated 2 more centimeters, or maybe less, because I may have been more dilated when I went in. But anyway, I was at least at a 4. And she said when they broke my water, my contractions might get more intense, but also they might be less intense and feel better because the water might be putting a lot of pressure on me. So when she broke my water, it actually was a huge relief. The contractions felt a lot better for the next like little bit. And that was about 3:30. She like fully broke my water. Now, if you've never had your water break, like when my water broke, if I had had a baby before, I would have known it wasn't all your water, because when they break your water, it's a lot of liquid. And then for me, and I think they said for most women, like almost every single contraction, you leak additional water. Like your body keeps producing more amniotic fluid and it keeps leaking out. So it's just a lot. That's not something I knew about labor. So you're constantly like leaking all throughout the rest of labor. So like I said, that was about 3:30. I was dilated 4 centimeters, and then by 5 o'clock, I was ready for the epidural. So I told them I wanted the epidural. They have to give you like a round of IV fluids quickly before they'll do it. And then I got the epidural maybe like, I don't know, 45 minutes later. So when he gave me the epidural, he did give me a shot of ephedrine and waited like a couple minutes before he put it in. And the whole procedure went fine. I didn't feel anything. I mean, he's like, this is gonna hurt, this might pinch, you're gonna feel this. Like, I didn't care any of it. I was having like massive contractions during the whole time. All I was focused on is just sitting still, not moving an inch. And I do have scoliosis, so he had to do like an ultrasound, to get a little ultrasound machine on my spine, to make sure that he was like going in the right spot for the epidural. So that was another like, not complication, because they were able to just figure it out easily, but just a little like extra thing they had to do. So yeah, I got the epidural, everything was fine. They checked me again around 6:15, and I was 5 centimeters. So things were still progressing slowly, because when they had checked me, let's see, 3 hours, almost 3 hours earlier, I was 4 centimeters. So that's not a lot of progress in 3 hours, but it was moving. So then after that, they were trying to put me in different positions for labor to keep switching positions. And around like 6:15, 6:30, I had an incident where my blood pressure dropped, and it was super scary. Like, they called all the nurses in, the anesthesiologist, the doctor, everybody ran in all of a sudden. The nurse was like very concerned when the baby's heart started, my blood pressure dropped, her heart rate started dropping, and she was just like, I was trying to talk to her and she wasn't even listening to me. She was just like focused in the zone trying to do what she needed to do to get the right people in. So that was a pretty scary like incident. Luckily, my blood pressure did come back up. The anesthesiologist ran in. They gave me like an IV shot of more ephedrine, and that got it back up. And when that happened, I was lying almost flat. So the rest of my labor, they wanted me not to be flat and not to be in a position like that. So to have like my head kind of angled up, because they think that had something to do with it potentially. Also, they made me keep drinking apple juice to keep my blood sugar up, because they thought maybe my blood sugar had gotten too low because of the gestational diabetes. So either way, like, the other thing I forgot to say is they had a blood pressure machine on me that took my blood pressure every 5 minutes for the first hour that I had the epidural, and then every 15 minutes after that. So between like the heart monitor for the baby, the contractions monitor, the blood pressure going, they're constantly giving me IVs, they're constantly changing the Pitocin, and then checking, the baby kept moving. She's so wiggly and active. If you guys watched my last video, you'll see little clips of her, and she's super wiggly and always was during pregnancy and even during labor. So if you hear a little grunting and stuff, she just woke up, but she's just hanging out over here. She's being good, so, but she's making noises. So yeah, she was wiggling all over, so they kept losing her heart rate. And so the nurse was running in every like 10 minutes to fix the heart rate monitor. It was just like hectic, like between everything that was going on and then constantly switching positions, labor positions every like, you know, 20, 30 minutes. It just felt like there wasn't even a second. Like I thought I was gonna just relax and get the epidural and watch shows and like maybe take a nap, and it wasn't. There was like boom, 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 always somebody in the room coming in and out, you know, coming to check me, coming to tell me, you know, are you drinking enough apple juice, checking my blood pressure, all this stuff. And on top of that, I had to take my blood sugar every 4 hours, which that just seemed to come like, I was in labor for overall 19 hours and it felt like 6 hours maybe. Like it just was, time was just flying. So anyway, after that incident where my blood pressure dropped, I was very stressed the rest of labor, and like just was basically watching her heart rate monitor for the next, like, I don't know how long it was, like 7 or 8 hours until I was pushing. Oh, and then shortly after that, I went to go use the bathroom and I noticed the water that I was leaking was yellow. And the nurse said, oh, that's meconium, the baby pooped in utero, and so we need to have the like pediatrician and her whole team here during delivery, because if the baby inhaled any of the meconium, then that can be a problem for her breathing. It can be really serious, or it can be totally fine if she doesn't inhale anything, but we have the whole team here when she's delivered, just in case she's not breathing when she's delivered. Like, okay, great. So add one more thing to the like realm of things that are going wrong or could possibly go wrong. But so that's basically where I was at. I was super emotional, exhausted, and just like, there were so many doctors and nurses in and out of the room. I wasn't even able to film in between there because they didn't want me filming. You know, I wish I had got it all like on camera in the moment, but you know, it is what it is. But I'm going on too long because this video is already gonna be way too long, so. So then my epidural stopped working on one side. My left side, it was working really well. I would touch my thigh, I couldn't feel anything on my left thigh. Touch my right thigh, I could feel it like it wasn't even numb at all. Like the whole right side of my body was, I could feel. So they had me try to lay different positions, but they couldn't have me lay down too much because then it would risk an issue with my blood pressure happening. So around 9 o'clock, they checked me again. I was 6 centimeters at this point, and they called the anesthesiologist to come back and fix my epidural, and it was fixed for maybe like, I don't know, an hour or two. That it was, or it was mostly fixed. Like I couldn't feel, like I felt some relief on the right side, and then it just went back to how it was, where I could feel everything on the right and nothing on the left. At that point, it was like close to midnight, and the nurse was like, okay, I'm gonna check you one more time, and then we're gonna decide what we wanna do with the epidural, because he can give you a big shot of anesthesia into the epidural, and it will like probably work to numb you, but if you're close to pushing, we don't want to do that. And because of your blood pressure thing, I don't know if we even want to do that. So at midnight, she checked me and I was 9.5 centimeters, which was super exciting. And so the nurse was like, okay, sit like this for an hour and then I'll come back and we'll start doing the practice pushing and, you know, start getting this whole thing going. So at that point, I was so exhausted that they like put me in this position where it's basically like, you know, the position that you push in, you're like kind of knees up and like squatting almost. I don't know if I can explain it right, but anyway, so they put me in a certain position and I laid there for an hour, and in between every contraction, I would fall asleep. And then as soon as the contraction started, it would hurt, so I'd wake up, I'd breathe through it, and then I'd fall back asleep for an hour. And I was getting contractions like every 2-3 minutes, so I was sleeping for like 30 seconds or 60 seconds and then waking up, and just like that hour is like a dream to me. Like I don't really remember it because I was just so tired. And I was just like, I only have an hour till I start pushing, and then she's gonna be here and I'm not gonna sleep, so I'm gonna do my best to just get little cat naps in here. So anyway, 1 o'clock rolls around, like 1:15, and the nurse comes back and she checks me. She's like, okay, you're 10 centimeters, we're gonna start pushing. So the pushing actually helped the pain. Like I could feel everything on my right side at this point again, and when I would push with the contraction, it felt much better than not pushing. So I was actually surprised because I thought pushing was gonna hurt more, which it did right at the very end when she was about to be born. But at first, when I started pushing, it really helped the pressure and feel like, okay, this is right. It just felt right because you're moving the baby where they're supposed to go. So I started pushing. I pushed for about an hour. And so now we're at like 2:15 in the morning. I'd been at the hospital almost 24 hours at this point. And then I was getting close, so they called the doctor in. Yeah, once the doctor came in, it was pretty quick. Like she was right there. It was so much pressure. It felt so tight and so like uncomfortable right before she was born, but at that point you're there's nothing you can do. And it was funny because this whole time, like I was just expecting something to go wrong and me having to get an emergency C-section. So when we were at the point that I was like pushing, I was like, is this real? Like, do I really get to like push her out? Do I get to have a vaginal delivery? Or is this like, is it still gonna turn into an emergency C-section? So by the time the doctor came in and they were like, she's right there, keep pushing, it was just like so much pain, but I was so excited because I'm like, I'm so happy I don't have to have surgery. So I pushed for another 30 minutes. So I pushed for a total of an hour and a half. And she came out, she was perfect, she was breathing right away, there was no issue with the meconium. She like cried and for 1 second, but then was just breathing fine. They put her right on my chest and my husband was right there and she just laid there on my chest. They let her stay there for 2 hours. And like, it was just the most amazing, wonderful time to bond with her. And my husband and I were just talking to her and she was just calm and resting on my chest. They checked her blood sugar was fine. Like she scored perfect on everything and it was awesome. So the only thing that wasn't awesome about that 2 hours is I did have a lot of tearing. So while I was, you know, enjoying the bonding with my daughter and my husband, I was getting stitched up a lot. And I did watch one labor and delivery video here on YouTube. I don't know if you guys know, you can watch someone's whole delivery like from the angle of the baby being delivered on YouTube. I watched Shannon Rose's YouTube video of her delivery. She filmed it and posted it recently, and I assume it's still up. I watched it not that long ago. And one thing I learned from watching that video is afterwards when she was getting stitched up, she was in a lot of pain because they didn't give her Novocaine. And I was like, that's stupid. Why didn't they just give her Novocaine? Because her epidural didn't work either. And I think my doctor didn't realize how much my epidural wasn't working because I heard her say, yeah, I don't know if we need to give her Novocaine, but because I had watched that video, I was like, yes, give me Novocaine. Like I was like shouting to her, which she seemed far away. I don't know why I just needed to shout. She was like right there. But anyway, I was laying down with the baby on my chest and I was like, yes, please give me a Novocaine. I can feel everything. And so she gave me the Novocaine I'm so glad she did that because she was stitching me up for 30 minutes. Like, I was not expecting that. After like 15 minutes, I was like, are you almost done? And she was like, no. So I did have a 2nd-degree tear. That means your tears through your skin and your muscle. And that's just because, you know, pushing her out, sometimes you tear. I didn't have an episiotomy. I just tore on my own. I don't know exactly what tore where. I think there was some internal tearing. But basically there was a lot of stitches and it was uncomfortable as it was. It was more like tugging and stuff, but luckily I was numbed up some from the epidural, and then she also gave me Novocaine. So anyway, that's basically my story. I'm 4 weeks and 2 days postpartum today, so it has been a while. I am still recovering for sure from that delivery. She was 8 pounds 4 ounces, 20 inches long. And I mean, just even if you have a smaller baby, I think you can tear, but she was definitely like a good sized baby. And it just, there was a lot of damage with her being delivered. So, also, like, I don't know if you guys can see it anymore. You can see it a little bit. The shot of ephedrine that I got left a huge bruise on my arm for some reason, and they have no idea why it did that, but you can kind of see it a little bit right here, but it was like purple and black and blue for a month. Like, it's just now going away. So I was, as I've been recovering over the last month, I've been like looking at my arm and like visualizing what is going on with recovery inside of me. And when I'm like, you know, it's been 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and I'm still not feeling good, and I look at my arm, I'm like, okay, well, that's how much my arm is healed. So obviously it takes a long time to heal from stitches and tearing and everything too. So I've been trying to be patient. Basically, I can't stand for more than like 10 minutes. Like, basically as long as I could take a nice shower, at the end of that, I have to sit down. Like, there's just so much pressure down there, and it just feels like everything's just pressure. So I'm trying to take it easy and just, you know, not worry about it, but I'm so grateful that I'm not recovering from a C-section. I'm just, you know, I got to have a vaginal delivery, which is something I really wanted. I did get to have the epidural, which is something I really wanted, and it did provide some relief, even though it wasn't full relief. And I have this perfect, most amazing, wonderful little girl. So, moral of the story of all of it, it was like worth it 1,000 times over. It was, I would say, definitely one of the hardest, most stressful things I've ever been through, if not the most. But I would do it all over in a heartbeat, and like, I can't wait to have more, even though that was like a really, really hard, you know, 24 hours basically. It, like, at the end of the day, you kind of forget because you see your little baby's face, and it's just the most magical thing that's ever happened in my whole life. So anyway, in case you guys haven't watched my last video where I introduced my baby, I'll show you her right now because she is awake and she's in a good mood, which she always is because she's just the best. So I will show you guys her. Hi, Pumpkin. What you doing? She's such a sweet baby. She's just, look at her little like disposition. She's just like smiling all the time. So if you guys have any questions or I missed anything, put them in the comments below. I'll always answer your questions in the comments. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked the video, please give it a big thumbs up, and I'll see you soon in my next video. Bye.